Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the 2026 application walkthrough for the Teighlor McGee mini grants program. During this webinar, we're going to go through the application form that you can see here, and then we will, as we're going through it, we're going to put sample answers so you can kind of get a sense of how the application works. And at the end, we will have opportunities for folks to ask questions. You can ask questions for folks who are joining us live. You can ask questions using the Q&A. Additionally, we want folks to know that captions are available. In order to turn captions on, please look for the rectangle at the bottom of your screen that has the letter C in it twice, CC, that's closed captions. If you click that button, it should turn the captions on for you. Okay. So I want to start at the top. You can see we have some information here for y'all. And first bit is this form, like about the application form. We have two different mini grants under the Teighlor McGee mini grant program. The first mini grant is Self Advocates Transforming Equitable Policy, or the STEP mini grant. This mini grant is for individuals and groups connected to communities of color working on problems that disproportionately affect people of color with intellectual and developmental disabilities. That's our first one. This the STEP mini grant is only for folks who are currently living within the United States. Our other mini grant is the Affiliates in Action mini grant. That is for self-advocacy groups that are part of ASAN's affiliate program. If you are not yet part of ASAN's affiliate program, you can go to ASAN's website, autisticadvocacy.org, and go to our affiliates page in order to look up how to apply to be an affiliate, and email us at affiliates@autisticadvocacy.org to see if your group can apply to be an ASAN affiliate. If you are interested in the Affiliates in Action mini grant and are not yet, your organization's not yet an ASAN affiliate, we really want you, please apply as quickly as possible for the affiliate program so we can process your application, because you cannot apply for the mini grant until you are approved. Like, you cannot apply for the Affiliates in Action mini grant until your group has become an ASAN affiliate. Now, the Teighlor McGee mini grants program, our application window opens tomorrow, May 15th, 2026, and that application window where you can fill out this form stays open until July 31st of 2026. A thing we want to make very clear for folks, please do not use AI for your application. ASAN reserves the right to disqualify applications which use AI. So that means if your application uses AI, we will not consider you for the grant. So please, we want you to use your own writing and your own words to apply for the Teighlor McGee mini grant program. You can see here at the top, if you want to learn more about the program before applying, you can visit the website here, or check out our webinars talking about the program and previous webinars that we've had of going through the application. Also, if you would like support in applying for the Teighlor McGee mini grant program, you can actually sign up for office hours with my teammate Eli, who is here also today with the webinar, because we want to make this accessible to the community. We want to be able to fund community programs. Let me pause real quick. I see a question. What do you mean by AI? I use Grammarly for improving my writing. Do you recommend not using? When we are talking about AI, we mean, like, we want you to write in your own words. If you're using something, I'm not familiar with what Grammarly looks like now. It used to be something that just checked your spelling, checked your grammar. Um, I think that's okay. What we're talking about is, as Eli is saying, ChatGPT or OpenAI or similar programs. We don't want y'all to use AI programs where you just have to put in a prompt and it will finish it for you, or stuff that will completely rearrange your writing to be something different from yourself. Yeah. Checking grammar and like improving readability, I think that if you are writing your own words and like just making sure that your words like are grammatically correct and getting feedback on how how readable that is, I don't think that we will look at that and believe that it is AI. I hope that helps. Okay, so we're going to go through the application now. Um, what our sample, I'm gonna pop back and forth between, awesome, I'm glad that helped. I'm gonna pop back and forth between this Google Doc form and our like sample application that Eli took some time to write for us, and we're gonna go through the process here. Um, I really recommend because I think it's less stressful to do this where you have like your own document where you take the questions that we have here in the Google form and you copy that into a document so that way you can like have space to write things out. Um, so in our first section here, uh, we just we just want basic information, your email address. Please use an email address that you check regularly. Um, so that way we will be able to see, like, you will see any communication from us. I know that might sound like an obvious thing to suggest, but sometimes folks will use a less used email address and miss contact from us. So we have our email, um, applicant's name, um, and then in this case, our sample applicant, Salima Trainlover, is actually a member of a group. Um, you do not, again, if you're applying for the STEP grant, you don't have to be part of a group. If you're applying for Affiliates in Action, you will be applying whoever is filling out the thing for you will put their name in under applicant name, but then we'll give the name of your affiliate. And also phone number. And then also, please let us know, would you rather be contacted via email or phone? So I'm going to go ahead and say Salima would prefer email, and then country, United States, state, DC. Are you 18 years of age or older? So right now, ASAN cannot take grant applications from individuals or groups that are primarily youth, that are primarily people who are under the age of 18. Um, if you are applying with a group and some of your group members are under the age of 18, but the majority of your group members are adults, that is okay. So the answer for are you 18 years or older? Yes. Um, I'm going to say uh, we're applying for the STEP grant. And here's a spot where for our affiliates who are applying for the Affiliates in Action mini grant, please tell us your affiliate name here so we know who you are. And then this question helps us out to know how well our outreach is doing to the community. So we're going to say that Caboose County heard about the mini grant through ASAN social media. Now this question, we want to know, like, part of the Teighlor McGee mini grants program's purpose is to make sure that we're reaching a diverse group of self-advocates. So we're especially looking for organizations to apply. Oh wait, sorry, Eli, I saw you come off. What's up?
I was gonna go ahead, finish what you're saying, then I will tack on.
Yeah. Um, So we're especially looking for organizations to apply who are led by people of color, people from religious minorities, people with intellectual disabilities, people with other disabilities in addition to autism, non-speaking people, LGBTQ plus people, and people from low-income backgrounds. Um, by letting us know what like information about your group, you can help us help us to see how good a job we are doing at reaching self-advocates in these communities. So we have this statement from Caboose County here, and I'm going to paste that in. Okay, floor to you, Eli.
Yeah, if you could scroll up for a minute, I just want
Yeah.
to show a little bit of like if you go all the way up to where the collaboration is.
Yes, thank you. Mm,
Yeah. So, oh, actually, maybe it's on section 2 then. Let me not.
okay.
So basically, there's a point. This is just going to be a general step walkthrough for y'all because we see that actually most folks, right, are usually not affiliates, and they're applying for this grant the most. And we're just doing a general walkthrough, nothing too complicated, where you have several other collaborators. So this walkthrough does not have collaborators, but when we get to that stage, I want to flag it so that people are aware that, like, if you select yes to this question, you'll actually jump to a hidden secret section of the form where you fill out information about your collaborators, and then it'll loop you back to the next part of like but maybe I'm
Yes, thank you.
that question here right
Gotcha. Thank you, Eli. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next section. And this is the area where we want y'all to tell us information about your grant project. Um, excuse me. Excuse me a second. Okay. We'd like y'all to answer these questions in as much detail as possible, but that also doesn't mean when we say as much detail as possible, we mean like a paragraph or two, not pages. Um, these questions do have, excuse me, limits to how long your answers can be. And it's okay, like part of the reason why I think it's helpful to write your answers in a Google Doc is that it allows you to like workshop and go back and forth because you might like write out your answer like see how on my screen I have both the application form open and I have our working document with the written answers in it open. Um, when you're drafting your application, it can be really helpful to have them side by side because that way you can check back and forth to be sure of do I have like am I within the like limit that the question has for how long my answer can be. Okay. So we're going to go to the next section. And this is the description. Um, we only want 2 to 3 sentences for this question about like what your project is, um, because you're going to spend the rest of the grant giving us details on this project. So you don't have to worry about being super duper long. Um, think about this as like, this question is if you had if you got to ride in an elevator with somebody and they asked you about your grant project, how would you explain that? Like you only have for the time that you're in the elevator together to explain that to them. So that's why 2 to 3 sentences. In this case, our example, Caboose County, is looking to increase folks' participation in a local election by hosting 2 voting seminars um, for group members and their community. So they're explaining, like the first sentence explains like what they're doing. The second sentence gives us a little bit more detail about what those seminars will be. And then the third sentence is also naming like an additional step that they're doing of canvassing in their community. And canvassing is when folks go door to door to sometimes it's to talk about like what are important issues in a community when it comes to elections. Sometimes canvassers will be for like a specific party or candidate. And sometimes canvassers are about, in this case, like trying to encourage people to show up to elections. So that's what Caboose County is doing. Um, the next question is we want to know why this project matters to you. We want to encourage folks like do work that you care about, submit work that you care about, that you believe will help your community. That matters a lot to us. So in this case, like Caboose County, like Salima is raising the fact that um, as a second generation immigrant, like they have noticed the ways in which campaigns gloss over their community and are not accessible. And that has created a space where they feel it's very important for marginalized voices to be represented when it comes to political advocacy and access to the vote. And also make sure that folks are actually getting accessible information and like culturally sensitive and relevant information to elections and what's on the ballot, because elections have not just candidates for office, but often will have various policies that could be put into place that are controlled by the community. Um, so the next question is, we want to know how y'all feel your project will help your community. Like what will, when that work is done, how will that help folks out? And in this case, sorry, I'm talking a lot at length and I need a second. Um, Actually, Eli, do you mind if I pass the baton for you to give a summary of like why Caboose County thinks this project will help their community?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So also keep in mind that this is still like again a very general walkthrough. This I wouldn't say is a strong like an example of like like a perfect application. There is some information missing just because again this is a fake application. If this was to be a real application, I think we would want to see like name which candidate maybe you're supporting if you're supporting a candidate, name the very specifics of the campaign that you are hoping to support. Otherwise, we don't have a lot of information to go off of, right? But because this is a fake application, those details are not in place. It is not an election year in DC. So, yeah. But essentially, this Caboose County is trying to target um, members of their immigrant community who maybe are not usually having access to these spaces, either because of transportation barriers or by language access barriers or by um, just simply ableism, right? Especially one of we have considered one of their members is an AAC user in the group, and so this means that their participation in regular meetings often are hindered because people are not willing to take that kind of time that makes these meetings run longer when you're waiting for somebody who is trying to process information differently and then share also their opinion or be heard in the room. And so yeah, would you like me to just read their response to who it helps, or did you want me to go into more detail?
No, I think that works as like a sort of giving the summary of like this is what their purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. I
No problem.
appreciate the breath break.
No problem.
Okay, so naming what helps, and like Eli is saying, this is an example we came up with. So we made up stuff for this one. But when you're thinking about your application and writing yours out, um, think and like if you're an individual and you're applying by yourself, bounce your idea off of some folks who you trust to give you good feedback about the kind of project that you're doing, to help you make sure that you're really capturing specific details. Think of talking about this with folks who you know will ask you questions about like ask you questions about your answers and help you figure out what might be missing from your answer. If you're a group, talk together with each other about like be open to like asking each other questions to make sure like you're not missing information because we do want to see details. Caboose County obviously is a um
And this
it
is
is an example.
right, and this is the question where if you check alone, you'll just move along to
Mhm.
the part where you talk about your project and you talk about your budget and you talk about like that stuff. if you don't check alone and you select with collaborators, which we're not going to do because we are not collaborating on this. Usually an abnormal application to see collaborations. Not that we want to discourage them, but most of the time people say that they're applying alone. If you select with collaborators, we will have to see the extra screen. Is that what you want to do? Because I had
I
it.
want to just, yeah, I want to show it to folks, but it doesn't look like it's bumping it.
No, it would bump it once you finish and hit next.
Okay, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. So what it depends on, yeah, that's the switch. That question is the switch. You'll see all sections eventually when you're doing the with collaborators, but if you're doing it alone, you just skip the collaborator section. Um, yeah, but if you want to show it, we can test it first and then go back.
Yes. Um, I'm gonna click with collaborators so y'all can see those questions. To give you a heads up, what the questions are likely, like, if I'm remembering correctly, um, are with collaborators. When you click that button, what will ask you about your collaborators is like their contact information, um, what their roles are, so like how you're splitting up the project. Um, excuse me again. So I'm going to keep that button clicked for now, so that way when we go to the next page, we can show you that, and then we'll double back to uncheck it since our example does not do a collaboration. Um, what we also have here are the next question is about what other organizations or individuals are you working with on that project? This is different than collaborating. So these are folks who might only be contributing, in this case, our example org. Caboose County is working with a local mask block, Clean Air Solidarity, to provide KN95 masks to folks and borrow air filters for their event space. So that's, in other words, like that mask block is not a collaborator because they're not working with you on every step of the project. Um, if this question is about folks who might be just contributing a single component. So say if you're doing an event, like if your organization might be doing an event um, where you have invited other orgs to table and offer information to the community, then you might put those folks down here. If they're not going to be part of the whole process of planning that event, they're just there to show up and have a table at your event. They can pop in here. Now, we also want to know that y'all have thought about who else is doing work on this subject in your city, your county, or state, and what relationship do you have with them? And it's okay if the answer is you don't have like a relationship with them, or like you've worked with them in some on some things but not others. In this case, Caboose County, they do know there's a local Get Out the Vote organization, but in trying to work with them, sometimes that org doesn't necessarily like want to match them in terms of like additional time and also offering interpretation for attendees. Um, we're not like, oh, sorry, I'm pausing for a moment because apparently, there we go. Okay. Sorry, my internet got unstable for a minute. Um, we want to know
Yeah,
who
I
you're
I
working with.
think maybe then repeat a little because you did cut out for me as well, and I thought it was my own internet. So maybe repeat maybe the last 2 minutes of voice.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Eli. Um, in this case, I'm gonna just repeat my whole thing because I don't know where I lost everybody. Um, So we want to know about who else is doing work on this subject in your city, county, or state, and what your relationship is with them. And your relationship with other organizations doing this work might be like they could be all kinds of ways, right? Um, they might be somebody who you work with often. They might be somebody who you only work with in certain ways because there might be limitations there. So, for example, Caboose County, our example group, they know there is a local Get Out the Vote organization, and like that group has provided them some information about initiatives and candidates. But a challenge that like Caboose County has had with the Get Out the Vote group is that they don't always like offer like when Caboose County asks for like, hey, we need interpreters here, or we need more time for AAC users at these events, that like the Get Out the Vote group doesn't always respond. Um, and so that's part of why Caboose County is doing their own event to meet these needs. And then they also name like other local groups, but like that those are more focused on particular candidates, and Caboose County is focusing on access and information. Um, so that's kind of what we're looking for.
So to
Of
be absolutely clear, again, this is
Mhm.
a fake application. This is not
Yes.
real information about the Get Out the Vote work being done in DC.
Mm.
If you've asked them for accessibility requirements, please continue asking them for accessibility requirements. We don't have any personal knowledge of this information being true. This is just an example scenario. We are not trying to smear anybody out here.
Yes, thank you for naming that. I forgot the very obvious thing that like we did say this org exists in a real place. Um, Caboose County is not a real group. This is not a real application. We cannot speak to like how any organizations that are named here, like this is fake. This is fake information that is being used to like help give y'all an example. Um, because, right, there can be real challenges with local groups sometimes in terms of mismatches in accessibility or what a group's goals are. Um, and that doesn't mean you can't work with those groups. We do actually like seeing that you're connected with other organizations in your area, um, and that you're recognizing they're filling a niche here and you're filling a niche here, and that when y'all come together, you're creating a more complete map of your community in terms of the project that you're trying to do. Now, we also want to know about how y'all are building relationships. So, what your approach is to specifically how do you work with communities that you are not a part of? Um, and whatever your approach is, right? Um, in Caboose County's case, they focus on doing research and like engaging with that community, being a part of that community by showing up to open cultural events where folks who are not part of that community are welcome. Um, and like building relationship without necessarily trying to like make it reciprocal, but also like fulfilling their promises. If they say that they're going to do something with a community that they're trying to build relationship with, they follow through on that and they do the things that they say they want to do.
I will also say that, again, this is a very general response. It could help if y'all give specific examples of times in the past where you have collaborated with a community you are not inherently a part of. I feel like we didn't put an example of that such here because I want to dissuade people from like taking what we're offering you as like a boilerplate and just switching things up. So
Mhm.
if you have your own experiences, definitely write them and bring them. That's why there is a bit of space in these questions for you to answer. But what Salima Train Lover did here was that she listed out the steps of the way they engage when those situations happen, which is also something that you can do. You can take that route, or you can, if you have personal anecdotes and personal experiences of times where you have had to collaborate with communities you are not in, you can show us, what went right, what went wrong, where you learned, what you're applying to your current um, ways, modus of operandi, ways
Mhm.
that you move.
Yes, we like if you have specific examples of times in which you've built relationships outside of your community, we definitely want to see that here on this application. And you don't have to go into like super deep detail because again, please think paragraphs, not pages in length of your answer. But if you can give us specific examples, that does help a lot in terms of making your application stronger. Um, we also want to know through the next question, what's other work that you've done in the past that is relevant to like that matches the kind of work that you're doing now for this project? In Caboose County's case, they have already done in the past for the 2020 election, they did a Power Your Vote seminar. Um, excuse me. And through that previous work, they found that transportation was also a barrier for communities. And that made them pivot. They changed how they were doing things so that way they have both in-person stuff and they do stuff online through Zoom. They also offer transportation stipends, which is when you pay, like a stipend is a little bit of money that you give to help folks pay for something. Um, so they created transportation stipends for groups to help folks access both the seminars and early voting. So next we want to know what your experience is with advocacy work. And in this case, Salima talks about her own experience here. And you can see there's actually a good example of like why I suggest y'all having the two documents, because you can see the limit here is 800 characters. So Salima's answer is a little bit long. Um, and Caboose County like would have to workshop this to shorten it up. If your answer is too long, you won't be able to move forward. So I'm going to get us through this moment. I am just going to cut a sentence here. There we go. And we also want to know about like challenges. I think sometimes when we are pitching a project, and we're hoping to get funds for that project, we can go into a space where we want to be like, nothing's going to go wrong. We are prepared to handle anything. But part of being able to do work like this is being able to think about what could go wrong and um, do a little bit of thought about how you might handle it. And obviously, you can't predict every problem that could happen in terms of trying to get to your project and reach your goal. That's okay. We're not looking for you to think about everything that could ever go wrong. We're looking to see that you are thinking about how to be able to shift if you need to move to a plan B, um, but also how you can like that you're thinking about ways to strengthen your project. So that way you're prepared to handle challenges before they come to you. So in this case, they're like Caboose County is thinking about the fact that like because of where they are based, there's already a lot of political messaging that they're going to have to like. There's a lot of political messaging and there's a lot of canvassing already happening, um, and that can make it a little bit harder for them because there's so much noise. Let's say. Um, and that means they have to be clear in their messaging about like what their goal is with the community. So folks know that they can like why they should come to Caboose County's events. Oh, hang on a sec. There we go. Okay. Um, so which communities do you think will benefit? And we allow y'all to check as many of these boxes as you think makes sense. Um, We also please be honest with yourselves and be honest with us about which groups you think will benefit from your project, rather than clicking the boxes to click the boxes. So in our example case, they are saying that they believe that pretty much all of the folks on this list will benefit, except the okay, except the second box and the last box. So they're thinking their groups that will be helped are largely like people of color, immigrants, people with intellectual disabilities, people with other disabilities in addition to autism, non-speaking people, LGBTQ plus people, and people from low-income backgrounds. Um, if you're not sure which of these groups you think your project will benefit, ask yourself the question of how. Um, that can help you draw a line, like connect the dot between like, there's this group here. In what way will this help them? And next is, because the thing is, we are going to ask you how. So it's important for you to know that of how will your project make life better for the groups that you've checked the box for. Um, and in this case, Caboose County has people from all of these groups as a part of their members of their organization. So that means that they're already connected to these communities locally, and can directly help them in terms of the stipends for voting, and making sure that people are getting the right getting messaging about how they can vote, when they can vote, um, and how they can get to the voting locations. Next, we want to know, how are people from these communities included in making choices and doing work for your project? So in Caboose County's case, again, they already have folks from these communities as members of their organization. Okay, now I'm going to hit next, and that way we're going to get to see the collaborator questions bit. And then we're going to go forward, then we're going to go back. Okay. So this is a section I was mentioning. If you are collaborating with a group, in other words, multiple groups from start to finish will be working together um, on the project you are applying with, this is where you would put in your information. So what we're looking for is your collaborators' names, um, how we can contact them, so their email address, their phone number, what work they're going to do, and it just repeats. Um, you may not, we have spots for 3 collaborators. If you are working as a coalition of 5 different groups end to end on your project, um, that's okay. You can let us know that. If you don't have enough space here, uh, trying to think would be the easiest thing.
You would just email
Oh,
me
yeah.
at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
You would just email me, and with like the additional 2 names, like you would. So first, I wanted to say, when you get to this section, if you are doing with collaborators, again, it's not a very common thing that we see, but if you are doing with collaborators and you get to that section, um, make sure that like those collaborators are with you, like, or that they've preemptively given you this information, because that way you don't have to
Mhm.
like keep trying to save and come back to it later. Um, Maybe y'all all sit down together and do it together or something of that sort. Or like we said, you take note of the information needed here and give it to them ahead of time. But essentially, once you have all of your information in place, if you have like 1 or 2 more groups or 3 more groups or however many more groups that don't fit here, once the full application is submitted, send me an email and I'll drop it in the chat if that's helpful for folks. There we go. Um, Drop me an email saying like what your group name is, saying that you just applied, and here are the name. Like I actually have some more collaborators that are going to be on this
Okay.
team, and here's the relevant information. Attach it as a document, or you can put it directly in the body of the email. That is fine, and I'll make sure that it stays attached with your application, and that will keep it in mind. But do like keep in mind that collaborators are also expected to be at your check-ins as much as possible, because if they are relevant to, if they're in every step of the way and they're not just showing up, like how Alex was mentioning, like some folks who might be tabling at a bazaar or an event or something of that sort, then if they're like equal partners to you in decision making, then they also need to be present in like um what maybe they have, or I guess maybe they don't have to be, right? Maybe we
I
could
think
still utilize 1 point, but I think it might be useful to have one from each collaborator in the check-ins. We're meeting the needs as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, if you're collaborating with a group, if y'all are doing collaboration, um, I think that's something to be clear about, when y'all are planning together. As Eli is saying, definitely everybody who's part of this collaboration should be together to fill out the application. Um, however it works for y'all to work on the application together, whether that's um at the same time you're all in the same Zoom room or sitting around the same table, or whether that's y'all are emailing back and forth or all working in the same document. having everybody be a part of the application process is a good move. And also consider the possibility that y'all might need a member from each group that is part of this collaboration to show up to the 4 check-ins that we will have for grantees. All right, I'm going to go back
And that can
now.
make things very difficult with scheduling. So it could be a bit of a lift like that, how many
Yeah.
collaborators you are having for any type of project, not just for a grant. So just a thing to keep in mind, but we do welcome all sorts of collaborations.
Mhm.
Obviously, if something is like a crisis or drastic and somebody has to miss a meeting, that goes without saying. But for the most part, like they can send their, if they have questions for ASAN or like areas that they want to report back on, can't attend, they can pass along to another attendee or another point
Mhm.
person. But it's just important for y'all to make very clear who the point people are so that everybody is looped in on communication and we're all talking together in the same email threads if and when the proposal has been accepted or the money has been offered and we are trying to communicate with y'all. It just makes it so much easier when you have a clear understanding of who your core team is, who the point people are, and presenting that to us in that clear manner is important.
Yes. And like that's why like when you're filling out, actually, I'm just going to go back and click the button again. Um, boop, next. So when you're filling out, if you're applying as collaborators, when you're filling this out, um, you want to put down the group name and the contact information like that you're putting down for the collaborator. Think of that person as the representative, the person who will be representing that group in the collaboration. And will be ASAN, sort of like the person ASAN will be talking with for updates throughout the project. So that person from like that person as part of the collaboration, like that person is sort of saying that they have the time to be the communication human. Um, it's not, while it's not a whole, like, while it's not hours and hours of communication with ASN, it does mean that like, that person will need to be able to meet with us um, once a quarter. So 4 times in the year of 2027. Okay. Now we go into Smarty goals. Um, if you're not familiar with Smarty goals, we do have some information up here. We have a guide to it from our, I believe this is from our PADSA resources, and we also have the Management Center has a worksheet. Um, and Smarty goals just sort of break down your project in a like very like each letter of the Smarty goal is short, like the answer is shorter for that, and it kind of just breaks it down in a new way to make sure we want to see that you can break it down into a Smarty Goals thing to know that y'all are thinking about like how much time um, your project will take, um, how like how you're going to actually take the steps to get from the starting point to your goal being done. Um, and like make sure that your steps are related to the work that you're doing. Okay, so specific. What do you want your project to do? Caboose County wants to do 2 voting seminars for their group members and among their community about an upcoming local election. Uh, Measurable. How will you know that you're making progress towards your goal? Um, this is a place where it's good to have think in numbers. Um, I also want to name like we know the world, our goal, and like the way the world interacts with what we want to happen um, is not perfect. So you might say that you want to reach 100 people with disabilities um, and sign up 30 people for access-a-ride services in the case of our example. Um, that's countable, but also you might not get to those 100 people. Um, then it's also these things feed into each other, right? So like you have your measurements to know like what you would consider as success points. So this is also a very this is a very short goal, like a short answer for measurable. You can build this out more to say like by so if Caboose County is trying to make sure everything happens by March, because that's when the special elections happen, then they could break out measurable more to be like by this time, like by this month, let's say by December, they will have booked their venue, finished all their flyers, and like trained all the people who are canvassing. Then they could say by January, by the end of January, they will hold their first event. Um, that kind of like that's when we're saying measurable, like seeing the progress points broken out like that. And it's okay, like I personally don't mind if this is put out in like a bulleted list format, as long as it's something that we can like understand where you're coming from. And this is again a place where I think it's really handy um, to have somebody who is not familiar with your project, after you've written out all of your answers, have somebody else look this over. Like look over your answers and ask you questions about them because that will show you places where maybe you've left stuff out. Achievable. So why do you think that you can get this project done? Um, do you know all of the resources that you need to make this project happen? So in this case, Caboose County has chosen to focus on their access to their volunteer canvassers and the outreach that they're doing to the community that they think will help them. So realistic and relevant. Um, I switched my R's in this case. But what are all the steps in your plan bringing you closer to your goal? Do you have activities in your plan that are not really relevant? Um, this is the questions next to relevant are here to kind of help you like par that down. So let's say like if Caboose County initially was thinking about like it'd be really cool if we all had matching shirts, but then realized that like that's actually a lot of money and takes a lot of time because you have to design the shirts, get them printed, get them sent to you, that wasn't really reaching, like helping them reach their goal. So that might help them cut that. That's what we're looking for relevant to help you with, is how to make sure that you're not like doing community projects that like support other self advocates in your community is a lot of work. It takes a lot of time and energy. We don't want y'all to waste time or energy doing stuff that won't help you move towards your goal. Um, if you do have stuff that you're like, this would be super cool, maybe that's for a different project if it doesn't actually help you move towards the goal for this one. Time bound. In this case, Caboose County is saying that they're going to make sure they're like both the seminars happen. One happens 2 months before and one happens 1 month before the voter registration deadlines in their community to make sure that people get registered to vote. Um, they're also seeing if they can collect volunteers from these events. They're thinking like a good way to think about time bound. I find when you're planning a project, is think about what is your final deadline? And we recognize some folks might be applying with projects that will continue past the Teighlor McGee mini grants program. So it'll go longer than 2027. But like think of sort of what might be your initial deadline or initial like say if you're organizing an event. Um, if you and you know that you want this event to happen by a certain time, uh, put down that time of like essentially your furthest out date of like when you want the event to happen, and then you work backwards to see all of the steps that you need to happen in order to get you to meet that time point. Inclusive. So inclusive is making sure that you are working with folks like that marginalized people are a part of the planning and decision making process, that we're like we want to be working with community, not around community or what I call like the bug in the jar situation. We want to make sure we're treating people as people and that we are listening to them. Um, in Caboose County, our examples case, they have members of their group who are from these communities and can bring in can bring in other community members, can bring in opinions and like relevant thoughts to name like why people aren't registered to vote, like what's in people's way, and how can we address those problems. And then equitable is about how does your project work to remove barriers for everyone. So in Caboose County's case, they've made sure that their venue is accessible. Let me try that one again. They made sure that their venue is accessible to mobility aid users and that it's close to public transportation. Um, they also have mask block presence that will be providing masks to folks as well as helping them have like air circulation. They also have volunteer childcare because oftentimes like parents might need support for like they want to come to these events, but they need someone to care for their children in that time period. They also have food for attendees. Um, because folks might be coming in off their work shifts. Folks might not have like the time to both get fed and get to this space. So that can help. Those are all things that can help reduce barriers. Thinking like think broad, and that's why it's really important to have the inclusion, right? Because the more inclusive your like planning committee is for this event, um, excuse me, the for like this project or this project in this case, uh, the more you'll be able to catch what equity actually will mean, what access will actually mean for your community of all these little places where people might have a barrier that like if you were just working like without getting folks to weigh in, you might miss those things. All right, now financials. This is a spot where we ask y'all to upload a budget. And we're going to show you a sample one. Your budget doesn't have to be super complicated. We also know, especially right now, that prices for stuff changes. Um, in this case, like Caboose County is thinking about, they're thinking about that they're going to need promotional materials. They're going to need a venue and they're doing catering for their events, so they need to know how much are they feeding people. To give you examples, like you can go around to local local event spaces and see like how much does it cost to for like Caboose County since they're holding events, how much does it cost to rent a space? So they might have talked to hotels, community centers, maybe even libraries, um, party event spaces and seeing like what is actually the best option for the type of event that they're trying to do. Same thing with catering. They might have talked to full-on catering companies. They might have talked to local restaurants and given them an idea of we think we're going to have like 100 people to this event. How much would it cost to feed folks? And like these are also the dietary restrictions that we're trying to meet. Um, so this is about that's kind of how you can get quotes for certain things. Transportation with the rideshare gift cards. That might be going to the local, like if it's like a bus, if it's buses, if it's subways, if it's rail. Um, talking there to be like, we want to buy ride passes. How much would it cost for 30 ride passes? And they can get an estimate there. Obviously things like if they're going to be paying their canvassers, um, they know how much that's a set fee. And then fiscal sponsorship. So fiscal sponsorship is something we talked about in our like previous, you can find it on YouTube, in our previous Teighlor McGee mini grant webinar. And it is essentially when you ask a nonprofit to fiscally sponsor you. And that can help out, particularly when we're thinking about projects led by self-advocates with disabilities, right? Because we might have monetary restrictions on like how much money we can personally receive. A fiscal sponsorship is when a nonprofit sort of receives the grant money for you and then passes it to you, but they take on the tax responsibility. They might ask you for a fee though. So it can be a good idea to factor that in to your budget. So there we go. And let me see. Oop, hang on. We do need to upload something here. So let me,
If you can just export that one page as a PDF and upload it, like that one.
yes. Thank you, Eli. Okay.
Yeah, current tab, perfect.
I will apologize because I don't want y'all to see all of my downloads ever. So I'm going to temporarily stop sharing my screen um, for this part. Okay. Give me a moment. I'm going to share my screen again. Thank you very much for your patience with that. So you click Add File, upload one forwarded file. You can go ahead and, in my case, I have made a folder for this project, and I'm just going to click and drag, and then it uploaded the PDF for me. We should be good with 1 MB. You don't need a super detailed budget. You can give it to us as I have downloaded this as a PDF here. That totally works. Um, so hopefully that should be 100 megabytes should be enough. Okay, now we have reached the final page. Um, this is a page where we want to make sure that y'all understand like what we are asking you to agree to. So in this case, if your project is selected for the Teighlor McGee mini grants program, do you agree to attend an online orientation training session at the start of the grant, provide quarterly budget updates. You will not be expected to provide detailed receipts of how you've spent the money. Instead, we are going to just be asking to see sort of like an updated budget of like how much have you spent so far, and what have you spent it on. Provide a quarterly update on what progress you've made towards your goal. Attend quarterly meetings with ASAN support staff regarding your project. And then at the end of your grant period, do you agree to provide a statement or presentation about your project, the successes that you had, the challenges you faced, and what you hope to accomplish in the future? And then agree to inform ASAN on how you can receive your grant funding in a way that will not disrupt any benefits you have. So that's why we have the bit about fiscal sponsorship, because that can be something that can help you reduce the risk of like help you protect your benefits. And then agree to fulfill your proposed project to the best of your ability. It is okay if like we know stuff happens. We know you might have to make changes to your project. We're asking you here to do your best. And then right here, um, very much encourage y'all to click this button. It says, send me a copy of my responses. And it will allow, like, this way you will get your own copy of everything that you just put in here. I like it for peace of mind. It makes me feel better. Yeah.
But go ahead and unclick that because that's, you know,
Oh yeah, I know. It's a fake email.
good, good,
Um,
good, good, good.
yeah. In this case, fake email, so we're not going to click it because it won't go anywhere. But really recommend, since you will be using a real email, please send yourself a copy of responses. Then you're going to hit submit. Hooray, it worked. Your response has been recorded. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to stop screen sharing now and see, do we have any questions right now? We have a few minutes left, so I'm going to pause and give a chance for folks to ask questions. If you come up with questions later, you can always reach out to us. And again, Eli is going to have office hours throughout the entire time the grant is open from May 15th through July 31st. So you can schedule office hours with them anytime you would like to talk through your application or if you have questions. I'm also a name. I'm sitting here for I will hold it open for another minute to see if any questions come through. And then otherwise, we will give folks back their rest of their time. And thank you so much for coming today to this application walkthrough. And this will be posted on YouTube. Thank you so much. Take care.